Hey everybody, back again today for another fun-loving but utterly depressing little unhinged rant in my current thoughts on sustainability that may make you want to die, but in like that like warm fuzzy kind of death way. So let's jump into it. Um, so today we're talking about climate denial. And we'll get into the psychology behind it and, the psychological dissonance that drives climate denial and the economic fallacies that reinforce this type of behavior and the political frames that create echo chambers of confirmation bias that drive climate denial and makes people just double down on these stances that they have that are inherently false. So, let's start by defining what climate is by what it's not. Climate and weather are not the same thing. And although they are often conflated, rain, sleet, hail, snow, hot, cold, I don't care what it is, that's weather, that's not climate. Climate can be defined as the weather conditions. So it is kind of weather, but it's weather over a long period of time in a specific area. There are five types of climates on Earth, including tropical, dry, temperate, continental, and polar. These climates are influenced by the annual precipitation and the temperature. So, precipitation and temperature create a variety of terrestrial biomes, including tundra, boreal forests, woodlands, seasonal forests, savannas, rainforests, grasslands, and deserts. So, if we look back at recent history, right, I'm sure we're all familiar with the Dust Bowl. This is a clear example of human-induced climate change, where grasslands and wheatlands became desert from overproduction of crops, and they weren't properly managing and rotating crops, and became this huge dust storm of the Midwest. These lush grasslands turned into a total desert. And currently, we can see examples of this with deforestation for timber and palm oil, turning areas like the Amazon rainforest into total deserts. So the climate is changing from a rainforest to a desert. That is a changing climate, and that is human induced, undeniable. Or, global temperatures are increasing in tundras, and trees don't grow in tundras, but we've got trees starting to grow in like Russian tundra land, if that's what you want to call it. And that is tundra shifting to a boreal forest. That is human-induced climate change. So, said before, I'll say it again. Get mad at me if you want, but if you don't believe in climate change at this point, you're not a serious person. So hear me out though, because if you disagree with this, like, I'd love for you to comment or hit me up and we'll have a little talk about it. So the question is like, why would somebody deny climate change? I ask myself this question all the time. Well, to start, when you challenge a person's position on an issue that's core or central to his or her identity, facts and arguments is just seen as further attacks and they're easily deflected. Um, just ask my exes. Uh, this leads to the next question. How has climate denial become central to someone's core identity? Well, climate change has become part of the central narrative in the culture war between liberals and conservatives. And climate change in this culture war just ranks right up there with like low taxes, abortion, gun ownership, like whatever people are protesting about lately. Uh, the conservative narrative downplays the severity of climate change. And this comes from organizations like the Heartland Institute or the Heritage Foundation, these just total thugs for the death cult of capitalism. These organizations paint climate change as a type of Trojan horse designed to abolish capitalism and replace it with a form of eco-socialism or Marxist socioeconomic doctrine. Conservatives believe that climate change policies threaten the American way of life in the interest of global wealth redistribution. To organizations such as the Heartland Institute or the Heritage Foundation, a critique on capitalism is a critique or it's an attack on the middle class. And climate change cannot be adequately addressed without critiquing capitalism. So, got to do it. Who exactly is the Heartland Institute? Well, they are a Chicago-based think tank devoted to promoting free market solutions. And twice a year since 2008, the Heartland Institute hosts the largest climate denial conferences in the world. These conferences are designed to shape public opinion on political and social issues that are central to conservative identity. The Heartland Institute, which, according to its mission statement, promotes free market solutions. So they say. They promote free market solutions. I don't know. So they say. Gains traction by making climate about economics, claiming policies will kill capitalism, kill jobs, and send prices soaring. Meanwhile, organizations like this promote the current systems of power under the capitalism as usual model and claim to be these protectors of the American way of life. Well, they do this, but like the disparity of wealth's at an all-time high, and unemployment is at an all-time high, and debt slavery is at an all-time high, and the middle class is like become a relic of the past. It's just rich and poor now in the United States. So I don't know what they're talking about, but and somehow they got conservatives to point the finger at climate activists as like the source of their problems rather than pointing the finger at billionaires, which confuses me, but yeah, I got it. Not gonna lie, like it's pretty masterful how they duped conservatives. Like, touche, bro. That was sick. Uh, Climate deniers did not decide that climate change is a left-wing conspiracy by uncovering some covert socialist plot or conspiracy. Like, they arrived at this analysis by taking a hard look at what it would take to lower global emissions as drastically and as rapidly as climate scientists demand. They have concluded that this can be done only by radically reordering our economic and political system in ways that are antithetical to the free market belief system. So, to protect the free market, notice the quotations, I'll get into that in a minute. But in order to protect the free market, they slipped climate change in there with like abortion, gun rights, lower taxes, even though climate change is the one thing like everybody can agree to take collective action on. The reason behind this is because climate change like detonates, boom, just explodes the ideological foundations on which contemporary conservatism rests. So there is simply no way to square a belief system that vilifies collective action and venerates total market freedom with a problem that demands collective action on an unprecedented scale and a dramatic reining in of the market forces that created and are deepening the crisis. That was a mouthful. Let me break it down. First, the free market doesn't exist. It's fake, straight up. In the late 1700s, Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations, kind of birthed modern capitalism. He developed the concept of free markets with his theory of the invisible hand of the economy, which suggests that if someone comes up with a better idea or a product that renders other products obsolete, companies will rise and fall as a result of the invisible hand. This might have been true for a while, but it's no longer the case. Corporations have a massive influence over the political process, and to the point that goods and services that would be in the best interest of the public sphere never come to fruition in the name of profits. For example, like where's the high-speed rail at in the United States? If the free market is real, like why do we have to drive cars everywhere when people would rather take a high-speed train? I know I would. I'd pay for that. Where are the renewable energy grids? Bottom line is that the free market capitalism just doesn't exist. And the American way of life is rooted in overconsumption of natural resources and using those resources as inefficiently as possible. The more inefficiently resources are used, the higher the GDP. Great, So they say. The problem with GDP is that it's a failed metric and does not measure efficiency, quality of life, well-being, or disparity of wealth. It's like someone asking you how much money you made last year and saying and responding being like, "Oh, well, between me and Jeff Bezos, whatever, I made 243 billion." Uh, like so we can't grow our way out of this one, guys. Uh, and the benefits of the growth-based economy have always served the elites who convinced us to defer demands for social justice by saying that if the pie just gets big enough, then eventually we might get a slice. Well, that's always been a lie, and the current inequality crisis confirms that. We can't grow our way out of this because we live in a world of ecological limits. The source of friction here is that our economic model is based on the idea that nature is limitless and we will always be able to find more of what we need. And if something runs out, we can seamlessly find another substitute that we can endlessly extract. The problem here is that the idea of infinite resources on a finite planet violates the laws of physics. And even if we could find substitutes, the corporate lobbyists from the so-called free market that conservatives love so much wouldn't even allow a transition to a new resource until every last drop of the old resource was extracted, oil. So, if conservatives can come to realize that billionaires should be heavily taxed, corporations must be heavily restricted in conducting destructive behavior, the public sphere is of greater importance than the private sector's wealth. Planning the transition away from fossil fuels like has to happen sooner or later, but like it gotta happen soon. And the neoliberal capitalist policies they fight tooth and nail to protect are the exact policies that destroyed the middle class in the United States. Like this is such cognitive dissonance. It's killing me. So there's no joy in being right. Like maybe a little, but like this is terrifying. I don't like being right about this. But for progressives, there is a responsibility here to critique the failures of capitalism and modern industrial society. Conservatives essentially said to themselves, like, hey guys, let's get rid of all the rules and see what happens. And things went catastrophically wrong. Personally, overall, it's not my opinion that the left has any moral high ground over the right, especially after they sat idly by while the Biden administration funded the genocide of Palestinian people. Like, but in the case of climate change, the green left worldview, which rejects reformism and challenges the concentration of wealth and the centralization of power in our society, offers the best hope for overcoming the environmental crisis.